Okay, so hi, I'm Brittany Butler. I'm the Executive Director of the Social Innovation and Change Initiative, which is a relatively new initiative, almost 2 years old at the Kennedy School, and an adjunct lecturer there. And I'm representing our team, the SciC team, as well as my colleague, Julie Bottolano, who's a professor at both HBS and HKS. So I have to say, we're maybe the team that joined this group the latest and thus got to benefit on riding the coattails of the ethics group, of the search tool, of the fact that there will very soon now be this syllabus search tool, because that's sort of our next step. And so thank you actually to HILT for involving us. We started out, so the mission of the Social Innovation and Change Initiative at the Kennedy School is to generate new knowledge and also to shape the practice of innovation with a social intent. So not innovation to make a profit, not innovation for its own sake, but to solve a specific social problem. And we entered into this work essentially because anecdotally the student demand was just like blasting up. So our team was immediately overwhelmed by the number of students coming in and asking for advice about which courses they should take, asking about the iLab, asking about Hive, asking about all the competitions on campus and how they should be navigating those things. So this is really we entered with a set of questions about the curriculum, but also a set of questions about extracurricular activities and how those overlapped. And the thing about social innovation, unlike many of the things that have been described here, but I think this is an increasing trend also in higher ed, is it's not actually a discipline. At best, it's a phenomena inside of certain disciplines. And yet, year after year, the interest from students keeps rising. And as we talk to students about sort of what they want and how they want to make a difference in the world, they say, look, there's this specific social problem I care about, and what's the scope and sequence that I should be thinking through as I prepare myself to go out there and do this? And so we had terrible answers for them. And so like very basic level, we just wanted to know, is this the thing? Yeah, what courses are being taught? What out-of-class innovation experiences are offered? And how do the perceptions and experiences and sort of demand from the students and external actors about what's available actually compare to the supply? I mean, we just didn't know anything about this. And so we are very much in this stage and looking to go deeper soon. So again, this is where we started. So there was a report done in 2013 that gave us some indication that 36% of cross-registration positions across all the school. So this is like a student making an extra effort to go into another school because they perceive that there's something at another school that isn't available in their own. 30% of those fall into this category. And many of the students who made those petitions were denied. So we know there's interest. Just locally, again, the anecdotes were there. And then on the supply side, I mean, very spotty, but the challenge for us also was it was difficult to answer questions for prospective students. And at the Kennedy School and at the business school in particular, we were feeling the pain of actually losing prospective students, because even though we had this intuition that as a whole, Harvard University offers an incredible amount on this front, we weren't able to represent that well, and that was scaring us. And then at the same time, the students who were pursuing this stuff would say, like I've already taken sort of that first quote that you started with. There's a lot of overlap between these two classes, and I really wish someone could have given me a heads up about that, because I don't feel like I'm optimizing my time here. So that's how we started. But as we move forward, some additional questions surface that, again, I think are important as folks particularly think about multidisciplinary initiatives or initiatives that aren't, clearly in a discipline. But where student demand is high, which is, what is Harvard's responsibility to get clear about this stuff, given that social innovation, social change aren't, traditional academic disciplines? And that's an open question, but it's something that increasingly every year it feels like we need to answer. And what can and should be accomplished through the curricular versus the co-curricular? So the Social Innovation and Change Initiative actually runs a fellowship program. It's a co-curricular program for 15 select students every year who are working on advancing a project that they plan to continue when they graduate. They can get up to $30,000 to advance those projects when they finish. But is that the only experience that they should be getting here in the school? And how does that relate to what's happening in the classroom? So very much along the lines of what's going on with the research stuff and how much is that shaping students' experience here? It's something we want to understand better. And then what opportunities are we missing? It just seems like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we don't really understand yet. So this is just a quick sense of sort of how we approached putting our arms around this space and even just defining what we're talking about. Lucas, you spent a lot of time on this. So just a sample. This is just a sample. There are 521 unique courses, okay? So that's sort of on the next slide, but this is just a sample. So, you know, and look at the range. Innovators practice finding, building, leading good ideas. Applied music activism. Thermal tectonics for the next billion people. Designing for the just city. You know, innovative approaches to teacher prep. Innovation in ministry. I mean, these are all processes that certainly aren't 100% overlapping, but where you can really quickly come to understand that you need to be able to define the problem, right? There's a set of competencies here that each of these students sort of need to get. You need to understand the root causes of those problems. You need to be able to iterate and sort of think in an iterative learning way about potential solutions and make selections about those solutions. And you need to understand your own role as a social change maker. And so despite the fact that they're all across different schools and potentially different in many ways, there's actually a lot of similarities, and that's what we wanted to start to understand. This is a set of key words. So we followed again on the coattails of the ethics folks and did this sort of iterative process of looking for keywords in the course descriptions. We would have loved to have been able to drill down to the level of the syllabi, because we suspect that when we talk about the competencies required to be an effective social innovator, it might be happening at that sort of syllabus level. And when we get there, we will do that. But in the meantime, it just gives you a sense of the range of search terms that came up for us, and then we would feed those back in to the system, and Killy came to this 521. And so, yeah, for next year, I mean, in terms of what kind of resources can we use to support students and faculty and creating a community and finding their way, we've been thinking about a compendium of curricula. We think that just would be an interesting contribution also beyond Harvard, and that would then draw folks into the conversation broadly. Oh, this is our big takeaway, which is that pretty much every single school is offering courses on this front. I mean, and it's really pretty well distributed. There's like an other group here that represents a couple of the schools. But again, this, just like Erin said about the other, this is our first cut at a snapshot. We're still trying to figure out even what the bounds are. And so a step for us, next step for us will also be, you know, connecting with relevant faculty who are interested in this work, particularly faculty who have sort of an experiential learning pedagogy. They seem to be very drawn to this. And ask them for reactions to the set of courses we've surfaced. And then eventually just make recommendations to improve the student pathway for making social impact. I mean, many of them come here and say that's kind of why they're getting an education now. And so how can we prepare them to do that well? And then hopes, yeah, I mean, just that, again, the multidisciplinary learning journey in particular can be a little easier for students. Right now, we're very siloed. I think we all know that. And they feel it the most. And then creating connection between faculty and students who would benefit from working with each other. I mean, even on this project, I feel like I've connected with some of you who might not have identified as falling into social innovation. But when we get down to the nitty-gritty, I think we're actually grappling with a lot of similar questions. And this idea of developing sort of a one Harvard ecosystem, especially when resources are distributed across schools. So the Kennedy School cannot own social innovation, and we know that. But Harvard as a whole really could be a dominant player in this space if we could coordinate. So there are certain topics where no department, no school is going to be able to really shape a field, but together we might be able to do quite a bit. So that's where I'm at.